Hello, all. Welcome to our second Wednesday 101 webinar of September. So excited to have Linda Chubbuck here to talk about how to turn your yard into a pollinator's paradise. I'm Leslie Scott, and I am the founder of Reuseful. And I'm going to just take a moment and go over our website really quickly, and that way you can get a little bit of an idea about what we do. And so, oops, I think I'd know the share button by now. So this is our website, and this is a place where you can find a place for your Still Good stuff anytime, any day. And basically the way it works is our charity partners, they would go here and sign up to be a charity partner. They would put information about their mission and other information details about their organization. And then also their links to volunteer, donate cash, and if they have an Amazon wish list. And then also select the kinds of items that they accept as in-kind donations. And then if you are a person who wants to donate, you have stuff lying around the house, you can go up here to the donate button. You can select whether or not you need your items picked up or dropped off. You can select both of these, and that will result in our organizations that that do either, ending up in your search results list. If you have any preference about reselling your items or faith-based organizations, you can select that there as well. And then you're going to come down here, select the kinds of items you have. So say you have a box of women's clothing, and maybe you want it to go specifically to people who are experiencing houselessness. So you could go here and click that button, and then you're going to get all the organizations that meet your search criteria, and you can click on the link to find out more about those organizations. And then once you've found one that you like, then you can click on this contact button, and it's going to bring up a contact form. You can modify your message to say what you have. It's going to send the message to the contact person at the organization. And then from there, you can arrange with them to drop off your donation or get it picked up. So that's how Reuseful works. And we're going to go ahead and hand it on over to Linda to introduce herself and get us started.
Thank you, Leslie. I'll just talk for a minute and then I'll share my screen in just a moment, if that's all right. Leslie asked me probably last February or March if I would talk on native plants, and I said sure, because I'm just deep into the native plant world and I'm saying yes to everything like that. And then a few months later, she said, oh, I have to move the date. And I'm thinking, what? And I had forgotten by then, but it's been very exciting pulling this together. I will tell you that I have a flexible PowerPoint with lots of images, all from our gardens. And I'm asking her to allow you to put questions along the way. Do you want them to put them in the chat or in the special question and answer space?
Yeah, we don't have a Q&A
Okay.
box, so they can put it in the chat. And then if there's a logical place along the way to interject those questions, I'll go ahead and do that. But otherwise, as you said, you're going to pause periodically so that we can address those questions.
Right. So you don't have to wait all the way to the end, although I'll allow time there at the end. So I'm Linda Chubbuck, and my husband and I here. I'll go ahead and start sharing screen now if I can find the right button. And it's going to take me just a moment to get it full size, I believe. My husband Stan Slaughter and I um, are longtime gardeners, and he's a compost educator. And you probably have heard of him if you've been in the compost or gardening world anywhere. Stan Slaughter, and he works for Missouri Organic. So both of us were organic gardeners, and probably about 5 or 6 years, we sort of began dabbling in the world of native plants. And boy, I just went deep. It's like, oh man, this is where it's at. And if I spend the rest of my life going deeper into native plants and helping other people get excited about that, that's fine with me. So here we go. Starting at the beginning, you might pick your own reason about why you're interested. Maybe we'll have time to discuss that. But if you ever worry about climate change, isolation in your community, the polarization in our country, food deserts, if you live in the city, you hear that term a lot. Loss of nature and wildlife, extinction of species and insect populations down, young people using screens too much, all of us using screens too much. Anybody ever have any of those worries go through your mind? I mean, I can actually see your hands if you've got your picture up, or you can use the little reaction button at the bottom. Because I've been on lots of Zooms, but I haven't talked to a Zoom audience before. So anything you can do to react is happy with me. So I like that. So what if there was something that you could do in your own, thank you, in your own yard? Just a moment. I got to move something here. I can't see the right-hand side of my screen, Vicki, to, is there a way for me to move the pictures a little bit? If not, it's okay. I'll work it out. So if there was something you could do in your own yard that would actually address and begin to make you feel like you're addressing all of those things, that's what we're going to talk about today. Ordinary conventional lawns across the United States, the last figure I could find was 1.2 billion gallons of gasoline annually altogether. Also, these are like a food desert right here. This regular nice looking lawn is a food desert for pollinators, which then goes on up the food chain to birds and insects and things like that. They need something other than this. But here's what you can do instead. You can do something with native plants, and I'll give you a chance to ask questions about what your situation is and with some suggestions. You can take notes because I do have some resources listed along the way. So
Oh,
on the left,
Linda, we'll get your PowerPoint out to people too,
okay,
if you want
sure,
to share.
sure. And there's information, there's a few slides with the actual resources too. So on the left are conventional lawns, which admittedly are nice and green looking. On the right is the what we've done at our Seeds of Life gardens. I'll explain that in a little bit, but this is after 2 years of working with it. And I may use this slide later, I'm not sure, but you see the native plant garden sign there. Well, in front of that is an actual monarch butterfly. And I photographed that this summer. Most of the pictures are from this year, but there's a few in there from other years. They're all things that I've taken except for one chart. All right, so this really spoke to me. This is from a book I've read in the last couple of months, Benjamin Vogt, A New Garden Ethic, and he says in there, do not give up on wildness. And that spoke to my heart in a real way. I think that's why I used to want to go to the mountains, and sure, I still enjoyed the mountains or the ocean or the forest, but I realized that with some help and work on my part with my husband, we can recreate the wildness, some measure of the wildness that used to be here in this part of the world. And how many of you are from the Kansas City metro area or living here now? If you could wave a hand or put thumbs up. Yeah, okay, I see a couple of you. Don't know if I can see everybody. Thank you for responding. The Kansas City metro area is kind of unique. I'm originally a Kansan and have been in the Kansas City area now 20 years. but Kansas City and all of this area is the border between the forests and the prairies. And the prairies were actually managed. We didn't know this 25 years ago, but the forests or the prairies were managed with fire by indigenous people, probably discovered accidentally, but prairies are interactive with humans. If we let it all go and there was no human management and only occasional fires, the prairies would end up being forests again. So prairies are kind of a magical place. They're tremendously diverse, and I'm learning more and more. So here's why native plants matter. And Leslie, are there any questions at this point that are showing up before we start in on the reasons?
I don't see any.
Okay, that's fine. We're going to go through the reasons and then how to get started. And along the way, I'll give you opportunities to ask questions. Why native plants matter, and this will be cumulative. One is that I think this is why I feel so passionate about it. Humans need wildness. And there's going to be 1,000 things you can find in some of the books I suggest about why this is so and how it's measurable. But these are just a few bits and pieces I found so that I could put something up here to share. It's now known that people who spend a full 2 hours a week outdoors, and I'm thinking this is probably not on a tennis court, this is actually in some sort of nature, whether that's walking through nature or working in your garden. People who spend a full 2 hours a week outdoors report better health all around, physical, psychological, emotional. And somehow less than 2 hours, although it might make you feel better at the moment and it shouldn't be overlooked, it wasn't measurable at that point. Children who spend adequate time outdoors showed improved academic performance, love of learning, focus, and behavior. And I found numerous mentions that even a window outside a hospital room is enough to help the patients that consistently have windows to heal faster and better and get discharged sooner. Windows outside office space, windows outside schools. That's not exactly being in nature, but it's powerful enough to have an impact. Nature in our daily lives in small spaces is equally powerful to nature in a pristine wilderness. You don't always have to drive to the mountains or go to the seashore. You can create and find your own little spots of wildness right here. And that's what we're talking about. So why native plants matter? The second reason is pollinators need native plants. This is a picture I took 2 or 3 years ago. This is a honeybee, which by the way is not native, but it's been here a long time now. They were brought in. This is a honeybee on an aromatic aster, and these are really tiny. They're about the size of between a dime and a quarter. That's the size those are. Very easy to grow, very prolific, and these aromatic asters bloom. They're one of the last things to bloom in the fall. They bloom in October and November. And so it's some of the last pollen that all of the pollinators collect. And then these are cumulative. Well, I'm sorry, I'll get to the next one in a minute. These are some of the pollinators that we have around here. And I'm sure you've heard the plight of the monarch butterfly, that they migrate back and forth from North America to Mexico in the winter. And there's many people monitoring them and counting them and watching them. But between habitat loss and the heat and drought of the last few years, the population right now is dangerously down. And with people helping, I think it can rebound. There's lots of groups working on this, but it's made the sighting of the monarchs extra precious to those of us who were lucky enough to get them. And I've finally found the combination of plants that is bringing the butterflies to this plant and the caterpillars to this plant. And on the right-hand side of my screen, you will see a chrysalis that just showed up 2 days ago. It's right out here, out my window in my front yard. And the school children were the ones that pointed it out to me because I'd been showing them the caterpillar over here and how it was eating and how maybe we'd be lucky to see a chrysalis. And the 2 little girls came and found me and said, there it is, there's a chrysalis. And that's the first one I've ever seen within my gardens. So it's a pretty special time. We're watching. If you look, I don't think my pointer really shows to your screen probably, but if you look on the left-hand side of this monarch chrysalis, you can see some tiny lines going straight down, and that's actually the lines of the butterfly's wings forming. And just to show how exciting it is to connect native plants and children and insects, two little boys that were here while the little girls were showing me, this is first through fourth grade, showing me this yesterday. One of the little boys looked at it really weird and he said, how does the butterfly grow in there? How does it come out? And I said, I don't know. It's kind of a mystery. I said, go talk to your librarian at school and ask questions. So it's really been fun. The monarch butterfly picture I took a couple of years ago. The other two were this summer, both in the last couple of weeks. So pollinators, we've got that. And the birds then need the pollinators. They need insects, they need seeds. And it's a little hard to see, but if you look where the yellow arrow is, it's pointing to a bright gold spot, and that's a goldfinch. That I was driving out of my driveway one day 2 years ago, and there was a goldfinch, a pair of them, actually pulling seeds out of the, let's see, echinacea. I think that's what that is. Suddenly it's gone. Anyway, it's one of the native plants there. Leslie, do you know the name?
It looks like echinacea to me.
Yeah, I think it's the echinacea. There's two of them. I get tangled up sometimes, but anyway, there's the goldfinch right in the middle. And of course, the insect population is dependent upon the native plants and whether there's the kind that they normally eat, that they have evolved to eat, and they can't, some of them, many of them cannot just switch plants. They don't. It doesn't matter that you've got lots of grass, they don't eat grass. So they will die out if they don't have the foods that they have evolved to eat. And then the birds need the pollinators, and that even though many birds do eat seeds and berries, almost all birds feed their babies right from the time they hatch out of the egg until they fledge. They feed their babies insects, and those insects are all those insects that we might be putting poison out to kill. And it's like, as much as possible, let's not do that. And so that's another reason for native plants mattering. Then this is a little creek that is 2 blocks from our home, and our Seeds of Life Gardens adjoins it, all adjoining, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference unless you knew the story. But friend of mine took this picture, and right here in suburban Lee Summit, and believe me, there's not a lot of wildness here, but you see what that is with the brown arrow? That's a coyote right here in the middle of suburban Lee Summit. And that is not very common here. I have not seen it myself. So the more native plants we get going and the more little wild areas, it's not only do not give up on wildness for human sake, but also for the sake of the wildlife. And then I wouldn't have understood this a while back, but people get excited about native plants, and we have had so many people stop and talk to us. This was a tour we gave, and there were probably 30 people that came, and stands over there on the right, my husband talking about it, and I just snapped a picture. But we have neighbors stop because we're out there gardening at strange times of the day, like 7:30 or 8 in the morning, and people are walking by, going for their dog walk and their health walk, and they will stop and say, I love what you're doing. And they will say, that's so amazing. And then people sometimes just stop and say, I want to help. How can I help? That's been very rewarding. So we kind of begin to get to know neighbors when, I don't know how many of you live in the suburbs, but in the suburbs, neighbors can go years without really talking to each other. It's a normal thing. Everybody goes to their house, they go out in their backyard, they go to work, and they don't see each other. So front yard gardening with native plants has really been a connecting thing for us. And another reason why native plants matter, why they're worth doing, is that native plants have deep roots. Part part of my screen is covered up, but if I remember right, on the right is fescue or a lawn grass, correct? And if you look, you can see how short those roots are, about an inch or so. And that's what most of us have. So when the sun gets hot and we don't have enough rain, they dry out really fast. And so everybody starts watering because we don't have enough rain. If you go towards the left, you will see that each one of these native plants has roots that are dramatically deeper than the fescue and the imported plants. The lead plant, I've got 3 of these growing now. And I've got pale purple coneflower, a few of them. I've got some prairie dropseed, but the roots are dramatic. And that means that once they're established and their roots have kind of settled in, they can survive drought. They can survive heat. They don't need our constant attention. All right, one more thing about deep roots, and then I'll give you a chance to ask a question if you have it at this time. So these pictures I took a week ago. Cliff goldenrod is something I've been growing now for 3 years, and it makes babies all the time. And this is on the left is the baby. And you'll see it looks like a little rosette, not very big, about so big. And I was digging them up and putting them in pots so that I have them to trade with other people so that I can give them away and I can get us some others. And so cliff goldenrod baby, even the babies have deep roots. The plant itself on the right, you can see that from the green spot here where I put an orange bar across, from the top of the green spot, the camera made it look angled, but it was truly about 1 3/4 inches from where the plant ends at the ground to the top. But the full roots of this baby are 11 inches long. And I've got a turquoise arrow clear on the side. And that's a little 1.5 inch tall plant. But almost all native plants have these deep roots and they're sturdy. They withstand things. They don't need babying once they get going. So this one got potted back in to give away. So don't worry about it. I didn't leave it out. So plant native, there's so many ways to do it and bring wildness back into your life. Now, my next set of slides is going to tell you a little bit about what we are doing at Seeds of Life Gardens. So any questions on that sequence right now? If not, that's fine. I've got plenty to talk about. I just don't want to go off in a wrong direction when I have somebody with a burning question.
I think you're good.
Save them to the end?
No, I think you're good for now.
Okay, sounds good. So this is our front yard garden, which a few weeks later had the swamp milkweed grow that the monarch caterpillar and eventually the monarch chrysalis were on over here on the right-hand side. What's showing now, which was probably taken in about June, is native phlox. It's just a beautiful pink phlox. And this little tiny blue one is probably downy skullcap, though honestly, I'm still getting acquainted with all of them and trying to memorize the names. On the right-hand side, that spear sticking up, that's one of my favorites. It's called Prairie Blazing Star, and it's a butterfly favorite too. Some of those are fallen down here. They look like purple brushes, purple spikes. And then there's some non-native zinnias right down here in the front, that little orange thing. So 3 years ago, 2 blocks from our home, we were going for our frequent walks, and we began to see bulldozers tearing down 2 homes across the street from each other that adjoin a creek. And the creek park, there's a creek park that's owned by our homeowners association, and I'm involved in that now too. But at the time I was not. And they were tearing down these houses, and pretty soon it became obvious that they were tearing it down because the flooding had gotten so bad in that area. And the city and FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Association or agency, had bought out those homeowners, and so they were really glad. So then the city made it all level, two lots across the street from each other, and they just started mowing it every week. The big mowers would come and they'd mow it all down. And I'm walking by there thinking, those ought to be native plants. But I had this little discussion with God or the universe, and I said, I'm not going to fight to own those, but I'd plant native plants if those belonged to me. Well, it took about 8 months, and we had to go back and forth about all the things we could and couldn't do. You can never build anything on it, no garden sheds. There's no utilities at all, no water, and we can't put up fences, all that. But in the end, Stan and I were given those by the city of Lee Summit. And as you might imagine, we get probably every week, we get 2 or 3 realtors that are, or yeah, real estate investors that are sure that they want to buy these lots from us. And I say, no, you don't. We're gardening on those lots and you can't build anything. So there's a story there about how that happened, but we named it Seeds of Life Gardens. And we are planting a lot of native plants, which we're not funded by anybody. So it's mostly out of our own pocket with a little bit of support from Missouri Organic and a few individuals. You can come and visit if you want to just walk around on it. You can do that. I have some things up about it on the website. And our mission is really to benefit nature first, to kind of give back to nature, and then to benefit and educate humans about the joy of reconnecting with nature. We love it when people tell us they like what we're doing, because I'm always a little self-conscious about these are not ordinary lawns. Is somebody going to yell at us about it? But that's hardly ever happened. We enjoy the interest, the support, and the volunteering when people can help. We've learned a lot doing it. So this is a picture taken before we owned it. The tree on the left is a beautiful old hedge tree, and all the trees in that drop down you can see on the left is the Creek Park. But right here in front of us is what became Seeds of Life Garden. There was a house there at one time. The big tree is on the creek property, but the part right in front of us is ours. And this is 2021 March. And this is that same viewpoint in August of 2024. I'll back up one more time. Let's see. How do I go back? Let's see. I'm not sure how I go back. I could probably figure it out, but I'll leave it. So this is what it looks like now. And we've just been thick with butterflies over here on the tall purple flowers. That's called what we call the South Lot, because there are 2 lots right across the street from each other, and we take care of both of them. The North Lot isn't quite as colorful. It has a lot more shade, so we're doing more shrubs there and not as many flowers. This is Seeds of Life Garden, the North Lot, in March of 2021. And that's what it looked like when we took over. And then this is what it looks like now. We're hoping to get, if you see this tree in the upper picture, we had to take an ash tree down that was dying, and it's continuing to sprout out the top. I have a chainsaw artist who has said he would do a beautiful sculpture for us, but he doesn't ever really get us a price, and we are kind of stalled out on that. I'm still hoping that that will happen. We've created a fire pit. I've got a fire permit. If I call the fire department, as long as there's no terrific dryness going on, we can have a fire and sit around it and then call them when we're done. So that's kind of nice too, trying to do a little more. That's summer 2024, both of these pictures. And this, my son does drone photography sometimes, and this was taken, can you all see the date? I can't move the box of, I think it was 2022. Can you see that, Leslie?
Summer 2023, and okay. You can move it, but
my mouse doesn't work. That's the problem.
Oh.
The mouse doesn't work once the sharing is going on, which is weird, but we could work it out if we do this again, but that's how it is. So you can see the street going between. The North Lot is over here with a lot of trees around it. The South Lot is here, and that curvy line you see is a trail that I laid out kind of based on intuition and so forth. We've done a lot, but the trails are there It's never closed to the public. And although we don't want people to do damage over there, people are always welcome to walk through it. And I'm sure they do when we're not there. So that's going on. We're doing some vegetable gardening on the south lot because it's got quite a bit of sun in the south part of it. So here's some resources. And since, and you're welcome to write them down, they're not too complicated, or Leslie will send you a link for this whole talk later if you want. If you want to get started, Grow Native is probably where I would go first. They actually have created a number. They've got a designer that works with them. Sarah Beyer is one of the main ones, although this is a design concept by Scott Woodbury. But they have, if you say, I've got a shady area, what should I do with it? And you can go on their site and find a plan. And although yours might not look exactly like that, you can take ideas from their plants and from how they did it. They give you exact names. You can, of course, also hire a landscape designer to do that for you. But there's not a lot of professional landscape designers with native plant experience that are available. You can get on a waiting list sometimes, and you can end up paying quite a bit of money. So learning everything you can is helpful too. We've had things that landscape designers recommended that just didn't make it. I kept trying to plant them and they died, and other things, of course, have worked out well. But I've learned so much, and it's like, oh, that one wasn't happy. There 2 different times I planted it and it wasn't happy, and then I try other things. So that's grownative.org is a good place for plans. Then probably my favorite resource from the beginning has been this catalog from Missouri Wildflowers Nursery, which is south of Jeff City. And it's a commercial catalog, but he's obviously an educator at heart, and he will send you everything. There's all kinds of resources, like how to take a lawn and get rid of it, kill it, and go on from there to create native plants. You can buy from there. They come to Kansas City several times a year and will bring your shipment when you order ahead. The catalog is free. You can go to their location just outside of Jeff City, which is just such a treat. I mean, you have to have the back of your car available and be prepared to spend money, but it's wonderful. I've been there twice. Then these are, besides those original ones I've got there, Grow Native and MissouriWildflowers.net, these are books that are some of my favorites. And I've got another slide with some books on it in a little bit. Authors. And Alan Brannigan, Doug Tallamy it's kind of a life-changing book, Bringing Nature Home. Benjamin Vogt. And some of these people are also on Instagram, and you can really learn a lot there. The Roy Diblick books. Last year in, I think, February and March, I attended the Planet Native conference here in KC, and it was just fabulous. Some of these people are the people they bring in as speakers. So you get to hear from the top people, and workshop after workshop. It's 2 or 3 days. Since we're lucky enough to live here, we can, do it from home. We can go there and then come back. Everybody ready to move on there? Then one of the not so fun things about this doing natives is that you have to remove the invasives. And one of the things that's happened in North America, probably other places too, is that between settlers bringing plants with them that were their favorites, and then later big box stores selling things that they thought would be really good, and then even things like Missouri Department of Conservation recommending things, there are plants that were thought at one time to be good that have then become truly invasive. And nowadays, if you drive by a wild area, you may very likely, in fact, it'd be rare if you didn't see it, completely overgrown with things that do not feed our pollinators at all. They're like cardboard for a child. They are nothing. cardboard for a child is like these plants for all of our native insects. So we have to go through removing them. Bush honeysuckle, which is on the left, or it's sometimes called Japanese honeysuckle, and Bradford pear, which is still unfortunately sold in many of the garden stores. There's other things too, some that Missouri Department of Conservation was giving out. MDC, Missouri Department of Conservation, is an excellent resource and has lots of identification and pamphlets in full color about the invasives in this area and how to get rid of them. But it's a big job and you don't ever probably get it done. But we've done a good job to where on our property, it's only little sprigs in far corners. So the people that I used to envy that have 25 acres or 100 acres, they have a much bigger headache than we do. We were able to work on this and make some progress.
Linda, we do have a question in the chat. What defines something as invasive?
Oh, that's a very good question. Two things. One is that the word invasive means it wasn't here, say, 1,000 years ago. It wasn't one of the plants that evolved with all of our native insects, our native animals, our native pollinators, our native birds. So it's been brought in since then. And the second is it's really only considered invasive if it gets real aggressive. And like iris and tulips, I grow them still, and they were brought in, but they don't take over. These plants will take over and fill entire wilderness areas, and they will choke out the plants that were there to begin with. Does that make sense? Does that help? Or further question? Tell me if you got another question there. Go ahead. I can't get the chat open from here. Like I said, my mouse goes dead when I share the screen. So Leslie, does that seem to have answered that question?
Yeah, that's great, Linda. Thank you.
We can do more at the end. Maybe we can do more dialogue then too. So that's the basic. There are things that I don't like that are native here, like I don't like Virginia creeper because it takes over everything, but it was born here, it lives here. I can remove it if I want, but it's not technically considered invasive because it's always been here. Same with poison ivy. I get rid of poison ivy if it's on my property, but it's not an invasive from some other place. So, as I mentioned, strangely, working with native plants, especially in your front yard or in a place that's not closed off from the neighborhood, will build community. And these are some of the pictures from the last couple of years. That's our fire pit and our granddaughter. We've had people stop and see that we are having a bonfire and they ask us questions. This was a tour that we had. This the young woman here, I forget her first name. Alex. Yeah, that's her first name. Alex works with Stan at Missouri Organic, and she sat there and answered questions. And then Braden, the little boy in the orange shirt, literally lives next door. And whenever he sees humans out there in the garden, he comes and asks 1,000 questions. So that's another thing. Another work day, we're exposing our grandchildren to as much nature as we possibly can in this era of overscheduling and screens, and that's all we know to do, but we're having fun doing it. And they all know the creek and they know our gardens. These are some more things just to identify them. These are all in our garden either last year or this year. Upper left is called butterfly milkweed. And it's kind of an unfortunate name, but it's one of the milkweeds that the monarchs enjoy and can eat. To the right is cardinal flower. It's a great hummingbird food. I'm not very successful getting it going, and I'm stubborn and I keep trying, but it's hard to keep it alive and keep going. And down at the lower left is Missouri evening primrose. When this fills out and this turns into a good plant, it can be a cluster that's this big with giant yellow flowers about that big. And I was lucky to get a few blooms this year. these are three other books that are really profound. If you're not sure you're going to watch the slideshow again and go through it, please jot these down. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. Those were two of my early books that I got going on. And The Nature Fix subtitle is Why Nature Makes Us Happier, Healthier, and More Creative. And she's talking about nature in general, while Robin Wall Kimmerer is talking about the native plants and the indigenous relationship to the plants. And then Benjamin Vogt is a native plant designer and author in Lincoln, Nebraska, who's very eloquent, and he's active on Instagram too. All right, I'm going to change this slide. And these are just pictures from a garden again. This is a Monarda up top. And this is one of the Coreopsis, lower left, with the yellow in the background being black-eyed Susans. And on the right, monarch on a plant that I can't immediately identify. That was a year ago, and I'm not good enough at recognizing the blossoms. So, all right. Questions from anybody? And I will stop the screen sharing so that I can see you better, and we can interact a little more. There we go.
Who has questions? Beth says, how much time does it require to care for your garden?
Well, the size of garden we have, it requires a lot of time. And but Stan and I'm fortunate that I have a partner who's equally committed. And I can't say, I will tell you that on the mornings that I say, okay, I'm going to garden today, I go out there at like 7 o'clock, and I maybe don't come in till 11 when it gets hot. And that wasn't really my intention, but that's how it works. At the same time, I see lots of things that I need to get done that I didn't get done at the same time. And I've had to make peace with that feeling that there is more than I can do, but that it's ongoing like that. And it makes me happy. You know, I don't tell my age to just everybody, but I will tell you that in about a month, I will turn 76. And I'm actually working as a job, weeding and doing this sort of thing only 5 hours a week. And I can tell you 5 hours wears me out, but I'm working for another native plant person, learning to weed and maintain those beds. And I'm doing this, and I think something about it keeps me younger. So, you know, it's work. It's not like hauling bales. So, you know, it's not that much, but it is work. However, you could do a couple of patches in your front yard and not have anything like what I've got. Plus, we're in the installation stage. And you give us, you know, when we've been doing this for 5 years, a lot of this will be relatively self-sustaining, much more than it is now. So we're in the pour in the money, pour in the work stage.
So to that point, when you first plant, I mean, they don't, because of the deep roots, as you mentioned, they don't need a lot of water, but at the beginning, they do need some.
They need a lot at the beginning.
Yeah. And so Rachel's asking, what kind of watering setup do you have?
Oh, well, for our garden at home, and some of those pictures were taken here at our home, but we don't have a big lot. It's just a corner lot in Lee Summit, you know. But the other, we have an old pickup, and literally old. I don't know what year, but it's really old. But it still works, and we've spent some money because we need it. Stan has rigged up a 55-gallon barrel and spigot on the bottom. And we bought, see, this is where some of our money goes. Instead of traveling all over, we spend money on native plants and keeping them alive. But we bought a Ryobi pump, and it's a battery operated one. And so we fill up the 55-gallon drum here in our yard, drive over there, and then he waters what needs to be. So that really pretty picture with all the things blooming and the sign behind it, haven't watered that for a couple of years in that area. Somebody said, oh, you must water a lot. And I said, not that area. But we still are trying to keep some of our trees alive. some of the things we did plant this year, and you do lose things to lack of water. You know, if it rains a lot, all of a sudden our work is cut in half. But in your yard, you'd water them a lot the first year, a little bit the second year, and not at all the third year, basically.
So I know here in Wyandotte County, and I think in Johnson County, some places too, there are grants that you can get, like reimbursable funds for what you are putting together. So do you have anything like that, or can you refer people to anything like that?
No, but I do know they exist. We live in Jackson County, Missouri, and there hasn't been anything. But because of Stan's work with Missouri Organic, we have used Kevin Anderson of Missouri Organic has been real supportive, and we've had some support from that. And then Stan has gotten compost to try to enrich the soil at first. Although I will tell you that basically native plants do not require composting and rich soil. But at the beginning, we were trying to stabilize everything. So no, we haven't had anything serious like that. I think they should be. Maybe there will be. So wherever you live, you could check with your area, because there's a growing understanding that native plants matter for all those reasons I listed at the beginning. It matters to people. It matters to pollinators. So ask.
Any other questions, anyone?
I see that there's messages over here. Let me see, maybe. Okay, let me see if I can see them. And how much
I've been
time?
monitoring the chat and giving you the questions.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So
good. Excellent.
This has just been great. I know that I've been doing a lot of native plants, and I also find that ordering native wildflower seeds is a really easy way to have a beautiful patch in your garden without a lot of investment or time. So highly recommend that. Rachel, you do a lot with native plants. Do you have any other tips or questions or experience you want to share?
Oh, no, not particularly, but I would like to thank Linda for coming on and sharing all her experience with us. I've been also like, well, I started around the same time as Leslie, probably because she had just bought her house, and I went with her actually to my first native plant sale. And at that same time, I had just moved into this house, which is huge. And so, you know, I've only been planting native plants. I've noticed it's helped a lot with erosion and water issues. But also being such a large property, it also helps cut down on the maintenance. Cutting the grass, because who really wants to do that?
Right. Good point.
But
Yeah.
thanks, Linda.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. Thank you. So, and I was going to say, everybody's got different household situations, but honestly, even though we're doing a big project and it is exciting, and I do have a partner, so I'm not alone in this, you can do something the size of a desk out in your front yard. And you can, within reach of a hose, so you can take good care of them the front year. There's no limits. In fact, I've got 2 sets of native plants in my backyard that are in pots, and one of them's doing really well. The other one, the squirrels keep digging up. So, you can even grow native plants in pots. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You don't have to do a big scale, or you can come visit a native plant place. There's a lot of them around anymore to visit. So
yeah, and I would also offer that I tried to grow butterfly weed for a couple years and it never got established. And so somebody suggested putting it in a pot for a year and then planting it later so that it could get established. And so I'm trying that. Roberta has one final question for us, which I think is a great way to wrap up our webinar today, which is what do you do in the fall?
Well, I'm trying to leave as many of the tall plants as possible so that I don't take away the seeds and the nesting place for the native pollinators. So I have to resist the tendency to say, oh, well, that's done blooming, I'm going to cut it all off. I'm trying to avoid most of that. So that's a job not done. What we're actually doing is planting new things. I am planting a new coral honeysuckle that will be at a place that I can watch the hummingbirds come, because it's a great hummingbird food and it's going to be right outside some big windows. Excited about that. So basically we're planting and weeding and learning. I'm just reading all the time because there's so much to learn. And that's mostly it. Watering, of course, because it's dry.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, there's
So,
one more question.
yeah, Beth says an easy ones to get started.
Okay, I would go straight to grownative.org and look for their beginning, because they're going to have some of them sorted that way for easy things. Grownative.org will have some plans, and although you don't have to do their plan, you can pick the plants from there for sunshine or whatever, because it'll matter. Also, that catalog that I told you about, the Missouri Wildflowers catalog, they've scored every plant from 4, which means this is great for your front yard, to 1, which means it's a good native plant, but you probably don't want it in your front yard because your neighbors will complain. And so 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I really pay attention to that as far as what I put where. So that's it. Okay. Yeah, lots of questions popping in now. Go ahead, Leslie. I'll let you field them.
Oh, yeah. Do you offer any technical assistance to help people get started? Do you do any workshops or any kind of training with people?
I would do this sort of thing if somebody invited me for a group. I'd be glad to do that. I'm not a professional designer. I've had to struggle through on my own. I know some professional designers, so if somebody wants to email me, feel free to contact me through the website or whatever, and I'll send you a list of designers that would do it for hire. As far as me, if you want to come and visit my garden, I'll talk to you. You know, I mean, I'll do that, or I can do this sort of a talk for a group. Does that answer?
Yeah. Can you drop your, I know you had it at the end of your presentation, but can you drop your email in the chat really quickly?
Yes.
And then we're going to go ahead and, for the sake of time, wrap up here in a minute. And so just want to thank everybody for being here. Linda had a ton of information in her presentation. And again, I'll get the recording out and also get the presentation file and include that with the link to our YouTube channel. We have all of our Wednesday 101 webinars are up on our YouTube channel, and I'll include that in the email to you so you can check those out. And I really appreciate Linda spending an hour with us today, as well as all the time it took her to prepare for this wonderfully informative presentation. So thank you again. And we will see you all next week, or well, not next week, but in a few weeks for the next Wednesday 101 webinar is a little different. If you know anyone who builds or renovates commercial buildings, we are focusing on commercial buildings for our October Wednesday 101 webinar. Also, if you know anyone who's interested in presenting, or you have a topic that you've just been dying to dive into, but you don't know how to start, feel free to reply to the email I send you with suggestions for future topics. And then with that, I think we'll wrap up, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. Thanks to everybody. Bye-bye.